Hi everyone. Okay, today's our speaker is Paul. He's all the way from Sydney, Australia. So he is one of the members of Kids at Switch. So he is actually a final year student from UNSW, University of New South Wales. He originally applied for roles with banks, investment banks, management consultancy firms, but he found that he wanted to spend more time on something that matters. So he found that he was passionate about the same things as Jamie. Jamie is the founder of Kids at Switch, about making a change and developing a business in the same direction. So let's welcome Paul.
Alright, hello class. As Mira, I think, introduced me, I am Paul. I'm one of the team members of Kids at Switch, and I'll be taking you a little bit through the journey behind the business and my role, as well as Jamie's role within this and our own experiences as entrepreneurs and how that relates to Kids at Switch. Before I go on, it's best to get an idea about what the business is about, and the technical side of it and the ideas behind it. So if the technician behind me is up for it, I'd like to get that video rolling now. Terrific, thank you.
I actually never pictured myself as a teacher, but then during high school, there was one year I went to Taiwan to teach a group of children from disadvantaged areas. Straight away, I fell in love with these kids, especially with their creativity, curiosity, and imagination. With just a little push, these kids showed me how they could all accomplish great things. And I love the fact that they were all winners in their own unique ways. So I haven't stopped teaching since. My passion for what I do hasn't ever changed. I fell deeply in love with teaching. And I wanted this place to be the best place where kids can learn how to solve real life problems without having the fear of falling behind, or having the fear of asking teachers too many questions, or having the fear of making mistakes. And I wanted to achieve this all through fearless innovation. So we set up our learning environments within what we like to call the mini economy. Just try picturing it as a real life version of Monopoly. The first thing that our students do is that they apply for a job according to their interests. So there's photographer, app developer, writer, all different jobs you can think of. And what they do after that is that they find a chair to rent, so they could sit down during our classes. If they don't pay rent, they sit on the floor. If they don't do their job, they don't get paid. Now we have a student who's only 7. She bought 3 chairs from us and is renting the other 2 out to her friends at a higher price. So this basic concept has 2 purposes. Firstly, it allows our students to understand the responsibilities of having a job, the value of money, and also to learn to budget for constant expenses. The second purpose is that it allows our teachers to tap into these kids' interests straight away. So this means that all the students here, they are passionate learners. It's shocking for me to know that we only get one chance, just one chance, to prepare our kids for a future that nobody can possibly know what's going to happen. And I want to take that chance. I want my teachers and me to be able to look into our students and know that they are well prepared for anything life throws at them. I started to realize there's a huge gap in the education system. If you think about it, our kids, they don't need more academic content or homework. What they really need is to learn essential life skills that will allow them to thrive in today and tomorrow's world. So I guess that's how I came up with the concept of Kids at Switch.
Okay, that sounds done. Okay, can everybody see and hear me? Yes. Show of hands, can you? Yeah, alright, terrific. Okay, through that video, you got introduced to Jamie Lee, who's the founder of business Kids at Switch a couple of years ago, teaching financial literacy to children. As I mentioned before, my name is Paul. so far I've been a student studying commerce and arts at university. But over that time, I spent most of my time working in high schools in a variety of roles as swim coach, outdoor education staff, you name it. But I found through that time I had a serious and sustained passion for education, which led me on the path that I'm going through now. It's worth pointing out here that both Jamie and I have got twin passions, I suppose, and it's important to keep in mind those ideas that you have twin passions between the idea that you're striving to create your business and a passion for entrepreneurship. If you have those two elements together, something you care about and wanting to do something about it, it's going to take you places. This is the first time that I've given an online lecture, so I'm not quite sure what to expect, but I'd love to have your help through the whole thing, and hopefully you guys will learn a little bit more that way, with a integrated approach, I suppose we'll call it. It's handy because at the moment I'm getting a lot of experience as a first-time entrepreneur, and I'm learning a lot from Jamie as well. So I'll be able to provide you with two perspectives on the whole entrepreneurship deal. The first is from somebody much more experienced than I am, with a good deal of drive, passion, and stories to tell about our time as an entrepreneur, and myself, who's just soaking all of that up and trying to put it into practice every single day. I might talk to you throughout the class and ask questions of you, get you involved, only because that's been my practice so far working with the children. And it's a little bit difficult for me to get outside of that mindset. So if you feel like I'm talking to you like kids, tough, because that's just how I work. Okay, without further ado, I'll introduce you to what I'm going to be talking about today, even just briefly. There are 5 key elements that I feel identify the entrepreneur experience, or at least that's what it's like for me so far, and that's what it feels like talking to Jamie. The first is why, the second is what, the third, Jamie calls it struggles, I prefer to call it reality, the fourth is team, and finally, as a phrase, it's in the doing, not in the dreaming. So, firstly, why become an entrepreneur? Why take this massive risk to develop an idea which, in every single case, has never been done before? That's what entrepreneurship is. It's identifying something which is missing and feeling like you can get something out of it. What Jamie refers to it as is having and owning your own story. Everything else manages to flow from this. If you have an idea about what you want to do and you have a vision, that's entirely the direction that will take you. Just so I can get an idea about where you guys are at about this whole thing, do any of you have ideas about what you want to do with the business? Don't be shy, I'd love to hear them. Put up a hand. Nobody? Alright, you're in the front with the cat. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to engage all of you. No, turn around. I see you. Is there anything, any idea that you've ever had, any dream or passion you've ever felt that you've wanted to bring into fruition? There's got to be, otherwise you wouldn't be standing here right now. Don't be shy.
The microphone is still to the center. Speak loud.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely.
Any idea what?
Have you ever had an idea or a passion? Any kind of dream that you've ever felt, like you could bring into the world and develop to add to the world or to provide for yourself?
Actually, I thought about promoting. Actually, I thought about promoting like cow breeds. Like I think you have heard about Fleckvier breed. It's one of the most known cow breed in the world. So I mean, it's kind of beneficial to the community in terms of meat and milk.
Terrific. I feel a lot for a better answer, actually. If you want, That's all I need. You can take a seat again.
I can't hear you properly.
Oh, that's good. If you want to take a seat again,
What?
sit down. You can sit down.
You can sit down.
Much better? Is it much better?
Yeah, that's terrific. This illustrates to me that I can pick out anybody random and everybody will have an idea about what they want to be able to do. That's awesome. And to show that you've got that expert knowledge in place, it already proves that you've got that first point to be able to move on. Everybody's got an idea. Everybody knows the world well enough by now to see that they can bring something to it and flesh it out. Beyond that though, you're going to need to have the tools to be able to make that dream or that idea a reality. It's all very well and good to know about cows. I, for one, don't know a whole lot. I eat them and drink the milk occasionally, but besides that, my knowledge is pretty sketchy. For me, what I know about and what Jamie knows about are kids. We spend a lot of time working with them, having that experience where we've gone through a lot of jobs, seeing something in the world which we feel like could be changed for the better. Having identified that, we felt like there was something that we could do in order to bring that idea to a point where we have a business. This is where the what comes in. So you know the why. You know why you want to do this. You know what. You know why you want to start being an entrepreneur. The first point I've got here is that everyone can succeed. It might feel embarrassing standing up in front of the whole class and talking about some idea that you've only even just briefly thought about. I mean, this morning only. But everybody's got it within them. Everybody's got the skills to be able to put that into practice. The thing is though, it's going to be a little bit of hard work, and you need to be sensible about this kind of thing. For most people, it's best illustrated through a series of steps. So once you have the idea, in Jamie's case, the idea was to bring financial literacy to primary school kids, which is ambitious, and some would say a little bit crazy, but entirely possible within her own ideas. If you think you can succeed at it, there's no point in messing around any longer. So once you have an initial idea, you build it. You build a prototype. And this is where you have to start off. You have to start small. You can't instantly go to a whole team of investors and try and raise as much money as you want. You can't go to the investors and say, give me $6 million, because I really have a great idea. In the first case, they're going to throw you out, because you've got nothing to prove. And in the second, you're not really going to be sure in yourself if what you come up with can actually work. So to make it happen, you need to build something small, and you need to see that people want to be able to engage with it. Financial literacy lessons is one example of this. Jamie started writing these lessons by herself. She came up with ideas, spending endless nights writing and rewriting lessons that she thought would engage children and bring them into a more secure knowledge about financial literacy. But she didn't go out and introduce it to schools to begin with, even if that is the idea, even if that is the ultimate goal behind everything. So she had these lessons planned up, and she took them to small groups of classes to see if the kids would engage with it. If it works, that's awesome. I mean, if you're confident enough about it, there's no telling why it shouldn't happen. Once that's happened, this is the phase where you're testing the market. So not only are you seeing if it works, you're seeing how well it works. And more importantly, you're seeing how it can be done better. And it's an essential part of being an entrepreneur. You need to constantly be aware of what your product is and the world around it. Once you test the market, you know that you've got something better. You bring yourself to the execution stage, or the execution iteration. None is better than perfect. You just need to have something to be able to deliver. Jamie is always talking to me about ideas are all well and good, but the ultimate thing that's going to make or break an entrepreneur is execution. As long as you have a decent idea and you can execute it properly, it's going to be successful. Beyond that though, you have to be able to sell it. And this is a big stumbling block for a lot of entrepreneurs. Everybody has great ideas, and people might have terrific ideas about how to execute it as well. But unfortunately, you have to be able to deliver this to skeptical people, because people are set in their ways, and customers know what they like. You do things, it's going to have a lot of draw for people to want to have to use it, and you have to be able to create that draw at times. You have to make people aware that your expert knowledge has created something fundamentally useful to them. This can only come through practice. I don't know how often any of you spend time trying to persuade friends or family about ideas that you have, but if you can get in that time where you're talking to them about what to do, then it's going to make a difference. And this influences their entire approach. You have to be able to put in the effort. This is another part of the entrepreneur's toolbox. This kind of thing isn't for the faint-hearted. Organizations exist to give you careers where they can help prop you up. They give you the opportunities to be able to do something within their limitations. Entrepreneurship is a career without limitations, but at the same time, it comes without help. So it's got to come from you. And this is where the struggles come in. Or, like I said before, the reality. You have to know what you're up against. And quite often a lot of people do, which is why you don't have too many entrepreneurs. You don't have as many entrepreneurs as accountants, or you don't have as many entrepreneurs as nurses. Because people identify the struggles involved with being able to do it. And so much of it is ill-defined and up to the individual. You have to be comfortable with the idea that you're going to be putting in a lot of time in order to bring these ideas to reality. Does anybody have any kind of idea about how many hours I would be working a day? Punch up in the front with a checkered shirt. Don't look around. Sorry, yeah, that's right. Come on, how many hours?
What's the question?
How many hours do you think I'm working a day?
Sorry, go again.
How many hours am I working a day, do you think?
6 hours?
6 hours? I wish. Unfortunately, that's one of the biggest parts of the reality. Most of the time I'll be working 12-hour days, but that's generally as a bare minimum. You want to be able to bring these ideas to fruition. Unfortunately for you though, if you've already got the why down pat, the 12 hours will probably come, I'm not going to say easily, but it will come. Because you know what you're doing, and you know how you're going to go about doing that. So you will be willing to put in that time to be able to flesh these things out. However, to be able to get into that position, you need to be self-aware, and you need to be confident enough in yourself to know that you're capable of doing that. You can have a great idea, and you can want to create a fantastic business, but you have to understand that it's coming from you as a person. Yeah, that's okay, sit down. You have to understand that it's coming from you as a person, because you are the entrepreneur here. Everything is flowing from you. And that's why I pointed out, the personal element has to be greater than the business element. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs who have designed their businesses without keeping themselves in mind, without understanding how they fit into the entire unit. And quite frankly, it just doesn't work that way. There's just going to be a massive disconnect. Like I said, it all has to be able to flow from you. Again, that's where the 12 hours comes from. If you know what you want to do and you know that the business is coming from you, then all that time is going to flow from how you're working. These things, though, don't happen by themselves. Every entrepreneur is only going to be as good as this team. Before I go on to that, though, I'll talk a little bit more about the resources that an entrepreneur has to be able to control in order to achieve success within that business, to make a difference in something that matters to them. What kind of, but I'll actually put this in class again. This time, friend with glasses, I'll get you to come up. Yeah. So like I said, you're going to get over this embarrassment. If you've even come to an entrepreneur class, you're going to be ready for this kind of thing. I like your t-shirt though. Very cool. Yeah, thank you. Terrific. No, I love the confidence. Okay. Can I get some ideas from you about what kind of resources I might have to control as an entrepreneur?
People.
Yeah. What else?
Well, I mean, if you're going to do something, then I suppose you would need financial resources.
Absolutely. Keep going.
Let's see. Perhaps equipment, depending on what you want to do, I suppose. Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, I kind of out of ideas really.
That's okay, but don't worry about it. It's difficult to be able to put this into, to frame it properly if you don't have, if you don't know which business we're talking about. So maybe, let's take a step back and think about Facebook when it first started, okay? What kind of resources did the team at Facebook have had to control?
I'm sorry, I don't quite get the question. Could you rephrase it? Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Okay. Maybe I'll just bring it back to myself. When first starting out, businesses have to control a wide range of resources. If it's something like, say, Facebook, they have to control computers, like you said before, people, financing, customers, suppliers. Again, maybe not so much for Facebook, probably more for a cloud example. But there's a whole range of things that you have to be able to identify. And these are all inherently linked to running a business. The most complicated element out of all of those is, what do you think?
I think most likely is people.
Most definitely it's people. As an entrepreneur, you are in control of everything. You define all the limits. How much you get out of this is entirely up to you. But people is a little bit outside of your control. I think most of us will agree that. I would be a pretty successful entrepreneur, I think, if I was able to entirely control the people element. If I knew that I just had to put out a little bit of cash and be able to get exactly what I wanted, then the sky would be the limit. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So you really need to identify the fact that time needs to be spent getting the people aspect of your business working. Because in every single case, you won't be able to do it yourself. They are a resource, but they're a complicated resource. When assembling your team, the first thing that you have to be able to identify in your people is passion. Because they're going to be running on that just like you are. They might be passionate to the point that they've identified that your business is going to be successful and they want to be a part of it. Or they might fundamentally believe in what your business is trying to do and everything else doesn't matter. That was the case for me when I first started getting involved in Kids at Switch. Originally, I was applying for jobs, like it was mentioned before, with banks and management consultancy firms. But I suppose I found that my heart wasn't really into it. Not nearly as much as what Kids at Switch was able to deliver for me. Because it touched me. And I felt like I could be spending my time doing something that mattered to me. Which I guess is the whole crux of what we're talking about today, isn't it? There's a reason why that statement underpins today's lesson. If you can identify that passion, and you can share that passion with other people, you've effectively doubled your workload, and it's exponentially grown from there. Again, that's what's happened with myself and Jamie. Jamie deeply cares about what she's doing, and because she was able to sell her product to me effectively, because you're not just selling it to customers, you're also selling it to people who want to be involved with you. She managed to sell it to me and make it sound like it was something that was totally doable, even despite all of the risks. Trying to find that in people, again, is a massive challenge, but it will make everything else so much easier, more than any of your other resources. What Jamie talks about in terms of success, sorry, you can sit down by the way. I know you look comfortable, but I'd love to be able to see the whole class, and maybe get somebody coming up as well. Any of you could be up. All right, switch me back, if that's possible. Thank you. What Jamie's identified as the flow of importance, I suppose, with becoming an entrepreneur and starting up a business. It's beginning with people, which I understand for most of the audience would appear quite unorthodox. I expect most of you would believe that everything would flow from products. But like I said, there really isn't. You're just wasting your time if you're trying to flesh something out if you know that you're not going to have people around you who are going to be able to assist you in the journey and who are going to be able to bring it. Because even if I'm putting in 12 or 16-hour days, I'm not going to be able to do it myself. And I need to know that I can make that connection with other people and that they share it as well. Following from people, the one I just mentioned, is product. So even though conventional wisdom would dictate that it would be the most popular, it's still a fairly important option. You really need to be aware of what your product is. From that, again, everything will flow, and you'll know what kind of decisions to make if you know what you want to be able to deliver. Jamie and myself spent a long time working out what we refer to as the value proposition, or knowing what our product is about so that we can be able to sell it to people. This might not seem as easy at first glance as you would think. You might have a great idea, like our friend with the cat, in terms of bringing I'm just trying to think what the example is again. You might have this terrific idea about how to enhance the quality of cow-related products to the market, but from that, you need to have a much better idea about what that direction is going to be. It can't be vague. You need to know what you're talking about. And from there, once you know what you're delivering, the profit stage comes. And that's where you try and figure out the most efficient way and most effective way of bringing your product to the people who want it. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit more about team again, because I feel like if you need to take anything else away from the class today, it's that you need people and that you need to be able to communicate with them. An important aspect of your team is that it needs to be fun. Entrepreneurship inherently is difficult. It's a cloudy, at times stressful journey. Because as I said before, you're defining everything for yourself, so you're up for all the mistakes that you might make. Despite that, if you can look past that and appreciate the time that you're spending working on what you're doing, no minute is ever going to be wasted. If you're just in it for making money, then it's going to bring you a lot of unhappiness. And you'll probably burn out at the same time. It's not a good source of motivation. Which is why I pointed out fun as one example. At Kids at Switch we have fun. Obviously we have fun. I mean, I can't tell if you can see from here, but we have a teddy bear in one of our corners. And I think a bunch of other robot toys in the other room. So we're probably a very extreme example of a workplace having fun. But all other startups are exactly the same. If you can't expect that you're going to come to work and enjoy what you're doing, those 12 hours will not come naturally. As I said, there's a lot of time that you need to put in, and that motivation needs to be there. It needs to come from inside. You need to have that personal self-awareness that what we're doing is the right thing, and it also needs to come externally, from the people in your team, and from your opportunity to have fun with what you're doing. And from that, learn. Beyond that, you need to be able to listen. And perhaps this could be interpreted as a part of fun, but you're not going to be having fun if you're not listening to everybody else. If your team, if your people have ideas, you have to be able to listen to them. As an entrepreneur, it's very, very easy to be firm in your convictions about what you want to be able to do. You have strong ideas about how to bring your business to a success. For Jamie, she calls Kids at Switch her baby. I don't think many of you would listen to other people if they were trying to give you advice on how to bring up their baby. I mean, I sure wouldn't. If I had a kid and somebody was telling me I was doing something wrong, my first reaction would probably be to tell them to get lost. And then I was taking care of my baby just fine. So it's a bit of a stumbling block to be able to appreciate that some people have expert knowledge that they can bring to you and ultimately benefit your product. So if at all possible, listen to the people around you. And this doesn't just go for your team. This goes for the testing the market stage, this goes for every single stage of what you're doing. We are constantly having friends, family, co-workers, customers, fellow entrepreneurs walking through these doors and telling us that what we are doing is wrong and that there's a better way to do it. And we listen to that because there have been too many times where they have been right for us not to. And this just comes from experience. The fifth element that I want to talk about now is, and again, this all comes back to the reality of it. It's in the doing, not in the dreaming. I understand that most of what I've been talking about today has come off as fairly motivational in nature, or maybe even a little bit abstract, or based in the idea that if you have an idea, you can make it beautiful and true. That's entirely right. But as I mentioned before, you have to be able to execute it. You can't spend all of your time sitting down and just thinking about how it's going to happen. Because if that's the case, it won't. If you want to build a wall, you don't set out to build the best wall possible. You start with every single brick and you make it as perfect as possible. And you keep going from that. If you have that kind of strategic vision, then there's no way that your product won't be a success. Okay. Those are the main things that I wanted to talk to you about today, just so that I can frame the entrepreneur experience for you. Again, I suppose, a little bit challenging to be able to understand that kind of thing if it's not within your own experience. So I'd really like to take the opportunity to be able to give you an insight, I suppose, into even just the absolute minutiae of my everyday involvement in Kids at Switch, or my everyday role as an entrepreneur. I know some of you might be shy about asking questions, but believe you me, if you've got something that you want to ask about entrepreneurship, I'd be more than happy to answer it. So, does anybody have any questions about just how you would start this kind of thing up? You're not too shy. That's a shame. Nobody in the front? Alright. That's okay. I didn't really expect too much involvement there, I suppose. It's, like I said, a fairly strange concept to be able to get involved in. Maybe I'll just move on. And we'll see if I can pick up more questions from there. I'll give you an insight into what I've been doing this past week. As an entrepreneur, mobility is an extremely important part of the job. You need to be able to work through these entire days effectively with things on your plate. There are opportunities all the time to be able to continue working through something at your own pace, because you are dealing with people, you are dealing with organizations that are outside of your control, as I may have mentioned before. It's all about control. So in order to overcome that, you have to be able to win the battles that you take, and you have to be, so you have to win the battles that are important to you, but also be aware that there are always going to be new battles to be able to overcome. This week, after we finished our value proposition, there's a lot of important things that we wanted to be able to do. And at the moment, we're mostly limited about being able to bring our workshops or our lessons to school environments. If we're not able to, in order to do that, we have to maintain contact with schools. This is a slow process. Kids at Switch works in education. It's not a tech startup. Things don't move quickly. To be able to work with schools, which are historically very traditional institutions, is a bit of a challenge, to say the least. So we need to constantly be able to move between avenues of exploration or development within the business. We send an email to a school. We try to see if they will talk to us. And if they don't, or if we have to wait on a reply from the principal, we have to move on to the next one. You always need to have plans for being able to bring your business into a successful position that you want to be in. It's difficult without PowerPoint. Okay. Just changing tack for a second, sorry. I know this being a little bit unorthodox, I suppose, but if anything, that should highlight the entrepreneurship experience, because there are no clearly defined rules behind the way that you're going to be approaching running the business. One of the elements that I wanted to talk to you today is about emotions. As I mentioned before, a big part of your role as an entrepreneur is dealing with people. You need to be able to maintain that personal touch. Big part of that is emotions. And this works on a number of levels. When you're dealing with your team, you have to acknowledge that they have emotions as well. You have to know how to be able to connect to them and be truthful with them and be able to trust them. I think that academically this is referred to as identification-based trust. If you feel like they can understand where you're coming from, you'll be able to reach them on an emotional level, which is important to them, I suppose. The same thing goes for your customers, or rather, the people who want to be behind you in the business. If you can engage them emotionally, then you're in a unique position to be able to sell your product effectively. You need to be able to tap in to that need that they have. Emotions is a big part of being an entrepreneur. You need to be able to identify what people want, and you really need to be able to capitalize on that. And that's not an easy thing. Not when you're trying to change the way something happens, especially if you're doing something that matters. If you have that kind of conviction behind you that you're doing something that matters, you will be able to make that emotional connection with people. Again, not just with your team or your customers. People want to be behind something that matters. That's inevitable. Nobody wants to be doing something on a portal. So I'll bring that back to something else that I was talking about before as well. Because there's a lot, the entrepreneur experience is very diverse, but if you have these core ideas down, then you go a long way to being able to understand it. And if anything, I just want you to be able to take some of the ideas away. part of being able to be truthful with people and being able to have that personal touch and emotional resonance with your audience is being self-aware with yourself. So before you start any of this, you need to be able to reflect on the direction that you're going. And you need to be able to reflect on what you're going to be able to do is something that matters to you. I know what I do matters to me. And that's what brings me into being able to do this every single day. Now, this all might sound like fairly simple stuff, or the kind of things that you would just start off thinking about when you're running a business. But I just want to stress that you need to be able to build those foundational blocks before you start any kind of business. You need to be able to know what value you are trying to bring. Otherwise, you can just stick to something else. Besides that though, there's a lot you can learn from the entrepreneur experience or from the entrepreneur skill toolbox that you can bring into other work as well. Passion is a big part of that. If you can identify something which is important to you, then you'll be able to bring that into any kind of career path you want. Besides that, the personal touch, where you're having emotional connection to people, that goes for anybody as well. Knowing your directions, again, is an important, works for any kind of role that you might have. You need to be able to do that so you can maintain mobility, so that you can be resourceful, so that you know what you have and you know how to make the best use for it every single day, every hour of the day. Got my water? The final thing that I want to talk about, though, in this difficult, convoluted journey that has been entrepreneurship, is you have to be able to celebrate success. You have to identify that what you've done is something that's never been done before. This is something which I know my team struggles with, because we're delivering something new. The other day, one of the other employees was really worried that she wasn't being able to deliver the lesson effectively. She wasn't sure she was getting through to the children. She just overall was quite nervous about the fact that she was delivering a lesson on gross domestic product to 6 to 12-year-olds. I think any of us would struggle to know if we were giving that lesson properly. What you're doing is always going to be new. Every step of the way. That's what entrepreneurship is. It's seeing something that isn't there and actually making it happen. So you need to be able to identify that what you've done is success in and of itself. The fact that you've given birth to something, or again, coming back to Jamie's baby metaphor, to feel like you've raised something up and actually given it life and made it something comprehensive is worth celebrating in and of itself. Again, this is entirely something which you can use to your advantage in any other sort of career path. If you feel like you've done something, and you've done something new, that's all you really need to expect of yourself. I think that actually might be it for me today. Again, I'd love to hear if any of you have questions, but I'm guessing that you don't. Oh, okay, that's right. Being here today has been a great opportunity for me to be able to reach out to people who have, I suppose, ambitions about wanting to flesh out ideas that they have or bring entrepreneurial ideas into their own lives. And I'd love to be able to take the opportunity to help you along that path, should you so choose. Which email address am I using? Okay, at Kids Switch. Yeah, so if any of you have any questions about what Kids Switch is about, or rather the entrepreneurial side of it, I'd be more than willing, or anybody in the team would be more than willing to try and get a hand at answering those questions for you. So if you've got any questions, you can email them to info@kidsatswitch.com. Oh yeah, somebody's writing it down. Yes. I don't know. I would have loved this kind of opportunity if I was from. Sorry. Oh, that's right. And if you're sending that email, make sure that you register as attention to Paul in one of the boxes there. I'm not quite sure how emails work in Malaysia or anywhere else for that matter, but I hope that you found it helpful. Yeah, that's pretty much it from me. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, I wanted to ask you, what inspired you to do this entrepreneurial project?
Okay. I found that I was looking at a many years of working with an organization which, while would be fulfilling, wouldn't be as fulfilling as I could make it to be. I felt like I could be able to, I didn't want to be able to be limited by any kind of parameters. That could be seen as foolish or even maybe a little bit too ambitious. But if you're aware of what your limitations are and what you want to do, it more or less flows from that. I guess, as a personal anecdote, the work I was applying for seemed like it would be restricted in terms of what I'd be able to learn. For me, I want to be able to feel like I can create success on my own, rather than feel like I can create success or develop success for somebody else or for an organization. If you're working for an organization, that's great. They can give you the resources and they can give you the training to do all of their goals, but they aren't your goals. And I wanted to be able to achieve everything that I wanted to do. Didn't necessarily have to be Kids at Switch, but it's been fortunate for me that that has aligned perfectly with what I enjoy, I suppose. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, so are you just in Sydney or other parts of Australia? You just
Okay. So where?
I mean, the schools are just in Sydney or other parts of Australia?
Okay, sure. So Kids at Switch at the moment is located, we've got one office, which is in Chatswood, in Sydney. We're looking to expand our reach at the moment. We've gotten in touch with a lot of schools and we've developed a network, which is a word that you're probably all familiar with by now. But we've developed a network with education with other entrepreneurs in order to be able to bring Kids at Switch to a larger audience. If you're curious about what Kids at Switch does or its existence, you can check it out on the Facebook page. You just have to shop Kids at Switch, KIDS at SWITCH into Facebook. You'll be able to find it right away. And that will probably give you a lot more information about what a young startup looks like. It's an interesting perspective on startups as well. As I'm sure most of you understand, most of these kind of businesses that are getting begun these days are tech. Without that tangible element, it's a little bit difficult to be able to gauge how they started and where they're going. But because Kids at Switch actually exists in a place and gives something to people, on an hourly basis, whatever you want to measure, it's much easier, I suppose, to see what kind of development there's been.
Right. Thanks and good luck.
Oh, thank you very much.
Do you mind just typing the email again so we can all see it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I wish I could hold it up or something. 1 second. Got a piece of paper. Thank you very much. I've got my team behind me. I'm still here, don't worry. I hope this isn't backwards. Is it? Oh, this is backwards. All right. Sorry. Oh, .au. All right. So if any of you want to write it down again, it is info, I-N-F-O, at kidsatswitch.com.au. If any of you weren't able to get it down now, you can probably get it off one of your classmates, or like I said, you can look us up through Facebook or through Google, and just send any questions that you might have through to Paul Essing. So attention, Paul Essing. Because I'd love to be able to help any of you out. Oh, go ahead. This is what I was looking for. I love questions.
All right. Hello, Paul.
Hello.
Yeah. Now, I mean, speaking about success and everything is nice, but obviously you don't really win every battle out there. So, how do you get through those moments when you just can't win? How do you get through those setbacks and move on? Things that are preventing you from doing something that's meaningful, so to speak.
That's a fantastic question. And honestly, I hope I suggested it before that this is one of the most, or possibly even the most defining feature about starting off as an entrepreneur. It's all well and good to talk about challenges and the difficulty, but you don't quite know just how difficult it can be until you can experience it. To be able to cope with those kind of challenges, you need to be able to have a supported network behind you. Because at its core, you aren't going to be able to get through this by yourself. Most of this is found in your team. Like I said, if you have a team behind you who are passionate and have fun with what they're doing, then even if you're having a bad day, they'll probably be having an okay day. And they'll be able to take you through it. There's always going to be, even if your whole team is having a bad day, there's going to be somebody in your wider network who won't be having a bad day. If you believe in what you do, and you surround people who know that you're doing something that matters, they will be able to remind you about it. And they will be able to get you through the process until you get to the point where you get another success. Because it will come. It doesn't come immediately. But you need people to be able to tell you that it comes eventually. Also, I like to have really nice lunches. I find that if I have a good sandwich, it makes the day so much easier, even if I suffered a major setback. But those are all sort of more personal coping mechanisms, I suppose. I guess more generally, I suppose as well, the world doesn't really care about how many times you've fallen down. Nobody's going to notice that. Do you know how you're always looking at the people around you and see how successful they are without being able to know what they failed in? It's exactly the same in business. You might get kicked down so many times, you might suffer so many setbacks, but if you just stand up once, people notice. And that is what's going to build success for you. And that's what's going to keep you going down that journey.
Right. Gee, one more question, if you don't mind. So, how do you keep things so to speak interesting in the entrepreneurship thing? You know, there are some things that are really pretty boring, I suppose. I mean, if there's a better way to put it. But how do you keep it interesting? How do you keep it going, so to speak? Yeah.
Yeah, no, again, another fantastic question. Inherently, and by its very nature, entrepreneurship is actually defined by variety. So it's very difficult to find yourself bored by what you're doing. There's a lot of other challenges, but dullness, I suppose, or tedium isn't really one of them. There are going to be jobs that you have to do as an entrepreneur, which can be perceived as, I guess, a little bit more boring than others, and you definitely need to be able to get through them. But if you actually understand the intrinsic motivation behind what you're doing, that's enough that will power you through. It's difficult to be able to do something boring with an organization like tax returns, for example. because it doesn't really do anything for you. It's not something which is, I guess it doesn't really make you reach a goal that you care about. But if you're going for something that matters, if you're building a business that appeals to you importantly, then even the dull tasks will happen in and of themselves. I spent pretty much the whole day writing emails and press releases, the same sentences and same paragraphs over and over again, but I knew that they would be building towards greater success for something which is important. And that was enough. Having that purpose there will drive you through. It happens in and of itself. So if you just put yourself out there, and if you feel like you've got the willingness to be an entrepreneur and make an idea successful, you'll find that things aren't boring. They're just hard.
Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you for your questions.
Any other questions?
Anything else? This has been fun.
Questions?
No more questions?
Yeah, I don't think there's any more questions.
Take the opportunity. Oh, wait, sorry, I thought somebody was getting up. That's okay. If not, don't worry about it. Okay, look, if there's no more questions, then, like I said, I'd love to hear from you, all the way from Sydney. I might send you a picture of the kangaroos that we've got outside or something. Sorry, that was a terrible joke. I'd be more than willing to answer any of the questions that you might have about entrepreneurship. And believe me, they will be able to make sense for you. Because these kind of ideas and the experience of being an entrepreneur is global. Because all you're doing is bringing ideas into reality. It's a never-ending journey. At least that's how I like to think of it. It's constant learning. It's a never-ending journey where you're able to discover things about the world and things that are important to you. So if you're doing again something that matters, and I hate bringing the same sentences into it over and over again, but I really want to stress just how important it is that you do something that matters to you. If you're able to do that, you're going to learn things that matter to you as well. All the little things that will build up towards your knowledge and towards your feeling of gratification for something which is linked to what you want. So, I think that's it. Do I click something or?
I think that's it. We'll disconnect from here. Thanks, Paul.
Terrific.